It says Ball for Friends. This was like a charity event I played in, like in high school. So
You're on the verge of a pretty significant personal milestone, getting to 1,000 points possibly tomorrow night. What does something like that mean to you when you think about your career?
I mean, it's pretty awesome. I've been thinking about it with this long layoff. I was hoping I could get it possibly last Saturday against Nebraska, but uh, since it's coming up, it's Thursday. I'm just hoping I can go out there, do what I can to help win if I do get it. I know there's going to be Coach Holtmann's 100th win as well, so that should be pretty cool. But just this milestone means a lot, honestly. Coming here, making a big impact for the team. I think I saw I was to be like the 60th player in history to do that, and that's just pretty cool experience. Just know have my name in the record books and whatnot.
How much do individual awards or individual accomplishments matter to you? You guys talk about wins and team things, but how much does individual stuff matter to you?
Uh, Truthfully, I mean, I see things like records that I've done and just like milestones that I made, but honestly, I don't really think about it as much like that. I just go out there and play and just try to affect winning, and if it happens, it happens. So.
You talked about having more time to think about that milestone or this layoff. What was your reaction when you heard that the game got postponed? And at this point, is it still surprising when you get that news, or is it kind of like you just have to kind of expect whatever?
This season, you just gotta expect whatever. Honestly, games get canceled at any time. You could probably be at an away game and the game might get canceled. But this year, just gotta go with the flow. Honestly, the game might get rescheduled, it might not. But just as I just hate long layovers, like we just been practicing all week. I'm cool with practice, but I'd rather play some games. So.
Is it different this time though because maybe you guys were still short on numbers? Coach said that yesterday on the radio, but not actually having to deal with COVID, maybe a bunch of you guys. Does that make this layoff different? Because you can actually practice and get some minutes in that way.
Yeah, it definitely make this layout different. We've just been trying to stay sharp, honestly, stay in shape, just keep doing game reps and whatnot, even though we can't play till tomorrow. But just staying sharp, that's what we've been focusing on, working on us. So.
Have any of the other 1,000 point scorers reached out to you lately about it?
Not yet. They'll probably hit me up after I score 1,000. Probably Dwayne too. He just had a great game too in 7 threes. That was cool. And see that.
Um, Take you back to high school real quick. I don't know if you would know this offhand, but what year did you pass 1,000 in high school? How many games do you know did it take you?
I think it might have been my sophomore year. Yeah, I think I finished with like 2,500 or something like that. Yeah.
Doing it, going into the game when you knew it was coming up, were you just kind of like, I want to get this out the way as quickly as possible so we can actually play basketball, or I don't know.
No, I try not to think about it as much because like, I feel like if you think about it as much, things are going to get forced, and I just let the game come to me. I don't force things. So I was just going to let it come to me naturally, honestly. Like last week, I didn't feel like I need to score as much when we played IUPUI, but I could have got it probably then, but I just went out there and didn't let it force it or anything. So.
And one more here. I mean, obviously, it's not over yet, obviously, but your freshman year, you come in, it's more of a role player, something that you've never really done before. And then the last 2 years, obviously, you've been one of the main guys on this team here. Can you just like kind of encapsulate what your career has been here?
It's been a lot of learning experience, a lot of humbling moments. I remember my freshman year, I played a game and I didn't even have like sweat on my jersey because I mean, you let the older guys do older guys things, but it's just been learning and just staying with it, staying focused, staying fighting through adversity, honestly, because things didn't go my way my freshman year how I wanted it to. Last year it was adversity, and this year I'm just gonna take all that, keep it, learn it, and just never forget it, honestly, because all those moments make me who I am to this day. So.
Coming into this year, I mean, I remember talking to you. You said you want to be remembered like the Aaron Crafts, like these guys that are kind of just like if they would have statues here on you, they'd have statues. And I'm curious about. I mean, is that something that you pictured back in high school? You're like, yeah, I want to be remembered like forever as an Ohio State Buckeye. And do you feel like you're getting closer? Does this milestone kind of bring you closer to that?
Yeah, coming into the school, I wanted to be like, because I remember I was remembered in my high school, my middle school, and I wanted to do the same thing here. But as I keep playing this year, I just need to do more to be remembered as one of those guys. And I think I'm getting closer to that. I know a lot of people love me just by the interactions I have with fans, just around campus, around Columbus, and I just feel like I'm getting closer and closer to that.
Is legacy something that you think about? Like, is it easy to think about it at this point, or is it kind of something that you'll wait when your career is over here?
I would probably just wait till after it's over, honestly. Like I said, I don't want to think about it too hard because I probably end up forcing some things that I don't need to force. It still hasn't settled in. I won 2 state championships in high school. I was just talking about with my best friends about that the other day. It's like crazy because like we don't know how big of like a thing that is until we're probably like done playing until we get older. So.
You mentioned how obviously you could hit a milestone, but also Coach Holtmann could hit a milestone, and it strikes me that you two are very linked as far as what you've been able to accomplish here together. What impact has he had on your career, on your development?
He's never let off the gas on me. Honestly, every single day he's coached me as hard as he can, and I just feel like he's still going to push me no matter what goes on in my life because I'm not a complete player yet, and I know that. And just with Coach Holtmann, he pushes me to be the best player I can be every day. So I appreciate him for that.
And as a team, you guys haven't won at Minnesota in a while. Is that something? Sometimes guys keep track of that stuff, where they've won, where they haven't won. Is that something that you think about?
Yeah, I've not won at the barn. Both times I went there, we were like number 2 the first time my freshman year. And Marcus Carr gave us like 30-something. I'll never forget that. And then last year, we didn't win either. But definitely want to go there and get a dub against a good team. Their record in the Big Ten might not reflect it, and people might not think they're like a great team, but they are a really good team, and they can compete with anyone. So.
EJ, last week on the Twitter video, we saw that Harrison got a scholarship, and just with your few seasons of experience, just what does Harrison mean to you, and just the program from your vantage point?
Ever since I got here, Harry's been like an upbeat guy always, and me and Harry hang out all the time off the court as well. Go get dinner and stuff, but all these guys are my brothers, honestly. Harry is one of my best friends as well. We play the game all the time. He might not be the best at Call of Duty, but he's definitely a good guy. So.
Just speaking of milestones, with the women's basketball team, JC Sheldon also hit that 1,000-point milestone. I'm curious if you have a relationship with her, if you talk with her, just what's your interactions been like with JC?
Yeah, she's cool. I was at the game against Maryland when she hit her free throw, and they said she hit 1,000, so thought that was pretty cool. I wish that was me Saturday, but it's fine. But JC is a really good basketball player. We stayed in the dorm freshman year. Got to hang out with her a couple times, and we keep in contact. So.
Jay, you mentioned kind of how you haven't won at the barn in your career yet. What makes it so hard to win there?
Just the environment, honestly. They're a really good team. I also don't like the floor. It's kind of elevated. The floor is kind of hard, but you got to adjust in those situations. But just Minnesota, they play really well on their home floor, just like a lot of teams in the Big Ten. So.
And you also mentioned Dwayne's game the other night. Have you had the chance to talk to him yet? And just kind of what does it mean to you for you to see like your teammate go out there and play like that?
Yeah, I talked to him. Y'all know how Dwayne is. He's a very interesting human. But just I'm happy to see him out there. I knew he was going to be out there soon. And just him out there contributing is really awesome to see because I could possibly be there sometime soon. So.
Yeah, EJ, there's been a lot of talk around you possibly being one of the better college basketball players this year. How do you respond to people in person and social media talking to you about that?
Everybody has their opinions, honestly. Some people might say I'm the worst player in college basketball because they don't like me. But that doesn't really faze me. I just go out there, affect winning, and they'll see by the end of the season. So.
You mentioned this layoff being different. Obviously, you guys could keep practicing and things like that. It's been the flow to this season has really not been there for you guys because of all the start and stop. How's that challenged you as a team? How's that challenged you individually to try to be at your optimal level when there's not really been a rhythm or a flow to the season?
Honestly, just staying connected, doing the little things, coming to practice, dapping up a teammate when you walk by them, being connected in huddles, just the little things, game reps, sprinting down the court, even when you're tired, just pushing through it. That's things I've been working on this season. It's just even when I'm tired, just push through it always. So.
What do those little interactions do? How do things like that help you? Seeing a teammate dap them up, things like how does that help keep things connected?
I feel like it's just building chemistry, honestly. Since the first day I got here, Kaleb Wessons dapped me up every single time he walked by me, and I just took that from then. And I want to give that to the younger guys when all these older guys aren't here anymore. So just us staying connected and just being together in practice is going to help in the game time.
I think a lot of other guys have stepped up a lot, especially recently. How do you think your load has been?
I feel like I just contribute a lot to the team, and a lot of guys are going to have moments in the season because basketball is a game of runs and ups and downs, and throughout the season I'm not going to have my best game every night. So guys are going to be ready to step up. I tell people to stay ready if they don't play as much. If they play a lot, stay ready because everybody's going to have their moments this season, their best moments, their worst moments, and just staying ready. So that's about it.
I'm gonna hit you with another legacy question. When you have, how much of that, you know, you wanting to be remembered like throughout your Ohio State career, how much of that in your mind comes down to the relationships that you build like inside the program? So the things that people don't see, you know, the relationships with coaches, players, those dapping up situations like you were talking about. I mean, how much of your legacy, of your remembrance comes down to those moments, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I just want to be remembered just as being a great person, honestly. Around this program, I know all the managers' names. I know everybody in the program's names. I just feel like those things are important, really. Just being a great individual every single day coming in this program and just being remembered as one of those guys, not even as a basketball player, because I feel like that handles himself. If I was like a good basketball player and just like a mean person off the court, I feel like it wouldn't be the same. But just me being who I am is going to leave my legacy here. Cool. Thanks, guys.
Here, busy week here ahead of us, and obviously jumping back into Big Ten play after our IUPUI game. Have a really challenging week with obviously Minnesota up here first. They're a team that's won at Michigan. We're shorthanded and beat a good Rutgers team. They've had some great wins throughout the season, one at Mississippi State, and just really impressed. They've had some really key transfers that have really helped them. The Battle kid has been phenomenal. Willis, who was with them at one time, was just phenomenal in their last home game. But they've had the addition of some, they're an old team. I feel like I've said that a lot this year about a lot of teams, but they're an old team, well coached. They really scheme for you defensively. Curry has really helped them. Curry's been with their program for 6 years now. He's one of those guys that was really good early in his career and battled some injuries, and he's out with an ankle injury, but it's a really good team. They almost won at Michigan State, had a chance to win it basically in the last minute. As I mentioned, they've had some really good road wins, as well as a good win coming off of Saturday. So big-time challenge. Obviously, myself and unfortunately our teams, we have struggled at the barn. So we've played teams that have been ready to play. We've had highly ranked teams. I think we were number 2 in the country at one time when we struggled there. Bottom line is we got to expect a great environment, a really good team, and need to be ready to play.
Chris, do you know how much of your roster is going to be making the trip? How have you guys come out of the week?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked that. So Michi Johnson and Jamari Wheeler are both day-to-day. Jamari's had an ankle, a foot injury that has bothered him. He has been unable to practice. So those guys are both day-to-day and will be game-time decisions. Justice is out and Seth is out.
You mentioned having issues playing there in the past and how some of those games have gone. It's a chance for a milestone for you, milestone for EJ. I don't know how much that stuff ever pops on your radar, but in addition to having a chance to just play another game and kind of get back in the swing of things, there's also some emotional heft maybe to this game. Do you feel any of that, and what does that mean to you that both you and EJ could have milestones in the same game?
Yeah, no, I just, I love the contribution that EJ, has made to our program. He's just, I've said it over and over. He's a phenomenal kid from a phenomenal family. He just made an incredible mark. His legacy is going to be one that's significant because of who he is as a player and who he is as a kid. But, he's got to continue to grow as a player. And as really good and talented as he is, tomorrow night's going to be a challenge for him. And he's got to be ready to lead his team, and that's I think his only focus right now is leading his team as well as he can lead his team along with Kyle and Justice and Jamari. So when those milestones come for a guy like EJ, we're going to appreciate him for who he is. But right now I think he's focused on the task at hand.
Chris, I know you got to be frustrated with the pauses, and half the guys you just mentioned right there seem to be on the injury report. With Jamari, you throw into the mix. What does that do for you? I mean, I know you trust a guy like Jimmy Soto, so he's going to get some run. What else do you do? Where do you look for contributions?
Yeah, I tell you, it has been, and I know it's been frustrating for Seth and Justice, because I know they expected, particularly in Justice's case, so much for this kind of season after the complete season he had last year. But, I think you really try to focus on who you do have and the strengths of those guys, the abilities of those guys, and not let the other stuff kind of mess with your head a little bit. And that's what we've tried to do. We've not been able to have a consistent group practicing here in the last week. But I think we're getting to that point. I don't think this is going to be a long-term thing with Jamari. We're going to do our best not to. He's a tough kid, not to let this thing be a long-term thing. But it does. It makes you focus on, okay, what do we have? What can we count on us having? And then how do we develop a game plan and a rotation around that.
Say that this year is even weirder than last.
Well, I don't know. Last year was pretty strange, given just the daily testing and the playing without fans. I think this year's a little more normal. I would say, Timmy, that I just think this year in some ways has been maybe equally or maybe a little more challenging due to you add the COVID element to the injuries that you're kind of normally going to have some type of injuries on your team. Every team does, but now you add the COVID element to it and the inconsistency in terms of being able to have practice numbers. I think that has made it a challenge. And, the 2 pauses that we've had after a couple wins, too, that kind of makes it frustrating. You're just starting to build a little bit of momentum. But, fortunately the day here, the layoff here is different in that the layoff before, we had a lot of guys who just couldn't practice for 10 to 12 days. And while we've had some guys not be able to practice, it's not been near as significant.
Coach, you mentioned a battle for Minnesota. I'm just wondering, because he's a guy obviously that transferred in from George Washington, and maybe you'd expect, a little bit of drop off in production, coming to the Big Ten. I mean, you've talked about that with guys,
Yeah.
But he's putting up 20 points against Big Ten teams and whatnot.
Yeah.
What's made his transition maybe easier than some other guys in terms of his game?
Well, a couple of things. I think one is the level he came at. The Atlantic 10, the A10's a really good league. So I think you're always looking at that and saying, okay, that's a pretty good league. Whether you call it maybe it's not a Power 5 league, but in basketball, it's just right. It's right there. A lot of really good teams. So I think that factors in, number one, to making his transition a little bit easier. I think guys that have he has good positional size and versatility, but he can really, really score the ball. I think he was able to be really productive at a really high level of play, and then I think that's allowed him to transition here well. And again, they've needed him too. He's had to play a major role on their good season.
And it's not like you guys don't do this, obviously, for non-conference games and everything like that, but is there an added challenge in preparing and scouting for a team that has, so many contributors or guys that are first-year players for them because they've transferred
Yes.
in from other places?
Yes, it's an added challenge. It really is. And you see that more and more in college basketball. But, the teams that you can say, hey, we know what this kid can do because we've seen him grow through his 3 years, but you kind of know what he's capable of. Here you're going into situations where you have really good players who you're seeing for the first time. It does change scouting for sure.
EJ, obviously, things happen. People make different decisions throughout their career, but that class, that was your second recruiting class here, and it was a pretty highly rated class. The guys have gone on to do whatever they've gone on to do. But with EJ, he's been the constant thing here.
Yeah.
One, from the day you started recruiting him to now, has that plan going exactly the way you thought it would go?
Well, it's gone. I don't think you ever anticipate a kid as a sophomore being necessarily. We knew he was really gifted and talented and would have a major impact in our program. We knew the kind of person he was in recruiting him, which is so important. Maturity levels, the kind of person. So we felt pretty optimistic about him, just because we knew the character and the person that this kid was, along with his talent. You combine that with his talent. So, but I don't know if you ever scripted. He's had a pretty daggone good run here, and it's hard to ever project kind of the success he's had. You don't want to put that on a kid, but it's been pretty optimal. And I know for him, I know he would like to finish both performing well individually, but most important to him is our team continuing to have success and have greater success.
So from his freshman year, where he's playing a role where he's not the
Yeah.
guy scoring, and that was difficult for him at times. He's even admitted that, to
Yeah.
what he is now. And I know it's not over, but how would you maybe kind of summarize what EJ's career here has been?
It's been phenomenal. It's been I think he's had a phenomenal. Again, there's so much of our season left to be played, and he's going to be faced with a lot of challenges. But it's just, I think he's had a phenomenal career here that I think he hopes continues to grow. I mean, I've just loved every day coaching him, and we've coached him, we've pushed him because we want him to experience everything that he wants in his life and that his family wants in his life, and for that to happen, he's got to continue to grow as a player.
On top of what Stephen was saying, I mean, how much of his, and I know you don't want to talk about legacy with EJ because his run's not done yet, but
Yeah.
I mean, he said before the season that he kind of wanted to be one of the guys at Ohio State, so
Yeah.
like known. Have you seen that? Like, was that a pressure on him? Was that a load that he took?
Oh, I think it is. I think he still carries it. I think he still feels it. You know, we talked about that before the season. You know, he knows the expectations that come with being the best player. That's not easy for a 20-year-old kid, you know, 19, 20, 21-year-old kid. Like that's a lot. It's a lot. So, you know, he and his mom and I and his family, we've talked about the best way to manage that. And he'll need to continue to have practices in place to manage that the right way. You know, you got a lot on your shoulders there. He just needs to be EJ. He's not a perfect player. He's got things he's got to continue to grow in. But yeah, that's a lot. But to your question, EJ's the kind of kid that leaving a legacy has meant something to him. And you know, I think it means something to Kyle Young. It means something to other guys too. I'm not saying he's the only one, but it really means something to him. And he's one of those guys that you can reflect back on and say, okay, you know, Ohio State gave a lot to him, but he gave a lot to this place.
And how much of that legacy that we talk about is stuff that maybe fans or we don't see, whether it's the relationship between him and you, him and the coaching staff, him and his players? Like, how important is that to kind of how he will be remembered?
Yeah, no, who he is as a person, and how our fan base is I think he's beloved, as I've said. He's beloved. So I think he's a very endearing, likable person. He just really is, not just his smile, but just who he is. And I think you can see that in you know, through social media. You can see that in how guys play. He's very easy to like. So, but again, his story is still being written, and I don't want to make too much of, you know, we're not sitting here, you know, going into senior day here. So he's still got a lot of stuff left.
Chris, you guys had 22 days off, I think, in December between games. Not quite as long of a layoff here, but now that you look back on it, how important was that IUPUI game to get in, you know, now that you have,
Yeah.
I think it's 9 days between games now?
Yeah, I mean, a lot more important than I thought at the time, you know, to be honest with you. I thought it was important just to continue to play and get games in, but certainly more important than I thought at the time, even just to get some game repetitions from some of our primary guys, but also some of our guys that are on the bench. So, yeah, it was important for us.
Ted, now have, I think, like I said, 9 days between games, and do you kind of go into this not really knowing how you guys are going to respond, because it's not a 22-day layoff, but it's also not a 3 or 4 day window like you would normally have? Is there a little bit of a balance there?
I don't have as many concerns, but you still do have concerns about just generally how sharp you're going to be. But I don't have as many concerns as I did given that longer layoff, and then also guys that had not played or practiced. You know, we had some guys going into that Nebraska game, and Nebraska's a team that more than capable. We've seen that against us in Illinois to beat a lot of teams in this league. So give them, I think they deserve respect for sure. Given, I think they're going to have a really good finish here. But just in general, we had guys that had only practiced like a couple times leading up to that.
Coach, Dwayne the other night, he hit 7 threes, broke a Indiana Pacers franchise record. To kind of see the journey that he had to take to get to where he is and the role he has with the Pacers now, just how has it felt to kind of see him break out like that?
Oh man, Dwayne's a great lesson for young players, you know, because older players, you kind of get it a little bit, but he's a great lesson for young players. I mean, you're talking about a kid who, was a good, we were glad when we recruited him. We thought he had a very bright future. We thought he had a very bright future as a player. I think we maybe saw some things in him maybe other people didn't see, but we also knew he was going to require a tremendous amount of daily coaching. And I give guys like, Ryan Peden and Jake Diebler and Terry at the time and now Tony, but Jake really's worked with him a lot individually last year. I give Jake a lot of credit for his continued growth, but he's a great example of a young man who it didn't come right away for him. It didn't come as soon as he wanted, and he stayed patient, and he stuck with just the idea of, hey, I'm going, call it the process if you want, the idea of getting better every day and accepting coaching and not looking for an escape route. He did that, and, we're his biggest fans. I mean, you should see our text chains as coaches, our group text that night. We're all texting back. I was sending clips that I saw from his threes that night. So we're really happy for him. We're proud of him, and we want to see him continue to grow. I told their guy who hit me up on Twitter yesterday, their director of scouting, I told him, tell him to keep grinding. Just keep grinding. He's got a lot ahead of him.
It seems like guys that have professionalized since you've been here with Dwayne and with JaeSean, they've kind of had to take that different journey that some guys maybe not have to take, whether you have to go through the G League or you have to go through Europe to get to the NBA level. Is that kind of something you preach? You kind of preach this patience of kind of trusting yourself in this organization?
No, I think I think throughout our time here, you'll see various examples. I mean, you saw Kada get drafted. You'll see other guys get drafted. What we really want them, it's not about getting there. It's about staying there and finding a team that values you and getting a second contract. Those are the things that we really want. We want our guys prepared for that. I could rattle off 100 examples of guys that got drafted and aren't in the league 2 years later. So we want guys to be able to have productive careers there.
It's just in general, and like you said, not to get too much on like an EJ legacy type of thing, but I'm very struck by how important he has been to your success here and the number of wins that you guys have together. And obviously you're right on the cusp of 100 wins. When you're recruiting players, like when you're going through a coaching career, how often do you get guys like that where you really feel like your success and their success are really kind of bound together? Is that a common thing? Have you had, I mean, you just mentioned some really good guys that have played here, but is that a common thing in your profession to come across guys like that really mean that much to your success?
Yeah, I mean, I think any coach will tell you, Adam, that their success is directly tied to their ability to recruit good players and players who also embrace, what that coach and coaching staff preaches. I think that's so important, right? It's not just good players, but it's players that embrace and communicate that to the other players what's important to the coaching staff, our program's culture. And EJ's that. He embodies our program's culture. He really does. So I think that's what was really critical. We were able to recruit a really talented player who embraced our culture and could grow as our program grew, because he was one of our first and earliest recruits. And I think, obviously makes us very grateful, but we just, listen, our focus is on playing as well as we can tomorrow night. So I don't want to spend too much time on legacy.
I was wondering real quick, you mentioned recruiting there at the beginning. If you could look to the future, it's likely going to be a transitional year. You haven't even minced words about how EJ's just put a bow on him. He's going to be gone. It's really exciting what you guys have seemed to have done recruiting here, and a lot of people are talking about it.
It's a really exciting class, and I think we're going to have some really also talented players that are going to grow into new roles next year that are with us right now. So you combine that with adding a couple transfer to with the young talent that we think can continue to grow and flourish, and the young talent coming in. And I'm just really excited about that class, the kind of people they are, the diversity of skill sets that they bring, and their upside as a group. It's, you know, it's a phenomenal group. It really is. And again, our staff deserves a lot of credit because a lot of work went into that. But, you know, there's some thoughts of, okay, oh no, we're losing, you know, these number of productive guys, and that will be sad in its own right, but it's also very exciting about what's on the cusp here for us here, both with our young guys growing into new roles as well as the incoming talent. It really is.